Hello and welcome to World News Program with me, Karim Zachary. These are today's top stories. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is expected to meet with the United Nations Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, on Friday. Also in today's news, at least 37 children were reported dead in Thailand after a mass shooting in a children's daycare. Also coming up, the US President Joe Biden raised alarm Thursday that the world is on the brink of nuclear catastrophe for the first time since the Cold War. And finally, 44 European leaders are meeting in Prague for a new summit named the European Political Community. Hello again and welcome to the program. First in our news, in his capacity as special envoy of the President of the Republic, Abdulmajid Tebboune, the Minister of Communication, Mohammed Bouslimani, was received on Thursday by the chairman of the Presidential Leadership Council in Yemen, Rashad Mohammed Al-Alimi, to whom he handed over the letter of invitation sent to him by President Tebboune to participate in the Arab Summit scheduled for early November in Algeria. The energy business Spanish Naturgy and the national hydrocarbon company Sonatrach signed a contract on Thursday in Algeria in the concept of the Medgas gas pipeline that connects the two countries for the selling and procurement of natural gas in order to maintain the balance of their contracts on a win-win basis. Sonatrach and its partner Naturgy have decided to update the rate of their current long-term gas supply contracts in light of the market evolution. The signing of this agreement serves to strengthen the two companies' long-standing partnership and to evaluate their respective market positions in Spain. Moving on now, the chairman of the members of the Saudi Arabia-Algeria Parliamentary Friendship Group Council were received by Mr. Umtala Mamra, Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community abroad at the Saudi Shura on Thursday in Algiers as part of their visit to Algeria at the invitation of the Council of the Nation. To the Russia-Ukraine war file now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is expected to meet with the United Nations Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, on Friday. In a tweet, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the two men would discuss the current situation of the dispute in Western Sahara and the possibilities of finding a fair solution to the Western Saharan cause based on the United Nations Security Council resolutions. And to news that are making headlines, at least 37 children were reported dead in Thailand after a mass shooting in a children's daycare center. Investigations reported that a former policeman is guilty of the attack which shook the Thai city. Usama Ayadi has more.
At least 37 people were killed in Thailand on Thursday in a gun and knife attack at a daycare center by a former policeman who killed his wife and child before turning his weapon on himself.
He went that way. I locked the door, but he broke it down. He shot it twice. I was on the kitchen side, 3 of us together. So we climbed the wall and ran on the road to alert people.
Authorities stood guard at the entrance of the child care center after the attack, while sheets covered what appeared to be bodies lying in pools of blood at the facility in the town of Uthai Sawan, 500 kilometers northeast of Bangkok, in the province of Nok Bua Lamphu.
3 of us went out. I thought he wouldn't come in because the other 2 teachers has died. He held the children, the other teacher, and assistant. We tried telling them, but they were on the phone. It all went down really fast. He was slashing the knife. He didn't use the gun. He kept slashing in there. It's all by a knife. I only saw the handle. It's a knife.
There were 22 children among the victims of the suspected attacker, who was discharged from the service last year for drug-related reasons. He cited witnesses as saying the gunman was also seen wielding a knife.
The three of us left. If we didn't leave, if I didn't warn those two, they would have died. We had to leave to get help. I've never thought it would be this violent. I can't take it.
About 30 children were at the entrance when the gunman arrived, fewer than usual as heavy rain had kept many people away. The gunman then forced his way into a locked room where children were sleeping to kill children there with a knife. Thai government buildings have flown flags half-mast as the king will visit the families of the victims as well as the survivors of the attack.
US President Joe Biden raised alarm Thursday that the world is on the brink of a nuclear catastrophe for the first time since the Cold War. Joe Biden said, quote, "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since President John Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis." He says, quote, "I don't think there is any such thing as the ability to easily use a tactical nuclear weapon and not end up with Armageddon." A Russian rocket destroyed a 5-story apartment block in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia, killing a woman and leaving other residents trapped under the rubble. Hosam Burkan with the details.
A military strike hit Zaporizhia city center in southeast Ukraine again and destroyed residential buildings on Thursday. Local authorities reported 2 dead in the aftermath.
At night, when people were sleeping, the enemy carried out a rocket attack against residential houses. 2 upper floors are destroyed. The enemy is terrorizing a peaceful population. We will hold on and we will win.
To address the problem of Russian soldiers' presence at Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, President of Ukraine received IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi on Thursday in Kiev. At a news conference, Grossi said that the UN nuclear watchdog considered the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant to be a Ukrainian facility.
We are here in a war. We want this war to stop. The war should stop immediately. And of course, the position of the IAEA is that this facility is a Ukrainian facility.
For his part, President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that the Ukrainian forces have recaptured more than 500 square kilometers of territory and dozens of settlements in the southern Kherson region alone.
Since October 1st, and in the Kherson region alone, more than 500 square kilometers of territory and dozens of settlements have been liberated and stabilized from the Russian pseudo-referendum.
In turn, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he is working to stabilize and develop the situation in what he called Russian territories.
We're working on the assumption that the situation will stabilize so that we can quietly develop those territories and help you to develop the country in general.
Zaporizhia is one of the 4 Ukrainian regions annexed by Russia last week. Kyiv says it will never accept the illegal seizure of its territory by force, and it has been condemned by Ukraine's allies.
44 European leaders are meeting in Prague for a new summit named the European Political Community. During the series of gatherings, European leaders discuss issues such as the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, among other things. Nabil Khazini reports.
It was meant to be a gathering for all of Europe, including those who aren't part of the EU or those who left. However, a big part of Europe was absent. The only nations not invited to the club were Russia and its neighboring ally Belarus, a symbolic move to show the EU's isolation policy.
What this is about working with all of our European partners to challenge Putin's appalling war in Ukraine, but also to work together on the issues that we all face: huge energy costs, rising inflation, and also migration across our continent. So it's very important that we work with our neighbours and allies to face down Putin, but also deal with the issues we face.
The gathering in Prague was the inaugural meeting of the European Political Community. a series of meetings to discuss key challenges the continent faces and also to send a strong signal of unity to Vladimir Putin.
I do hope this is a new phase of our common relations and this is the beginning of the day after. But our willingness is clearly to engage, to have concrete projects and to work all together for the unity of our continent, especially in these very challenging times, and for the interests of our people.
But behind this show of unity, we find latent tensions and countries with radically different trajectories vis-à-vis the European Union. Doubts about the viability of the wider Europe concept remain, with some fearing that creating yet another format risks it may become a talking shop devoid of any real decision-making.
My message to Germany is be united with, or be solidar with all the others, because during difficult times everybody has to agree on common denominator and not this denominator which is suitable only to one country.
Although leaders struggled to maintain a fully united front throughout the meeting, the presence of so many European countries was the main message.
After a meeting between the President of the European Council, the Armenian Prime Minister, Azerbaijani President and French Head of State Emmanuel Macron, the European Union decided to send a civil mission to Armenia to help delimit the borders with Azerbaijan. The mission will start in October for a maximum duration of 2 months. The objective of this mission is to establish trust and through its reports contribute to the Border Delimitation Commission. The French government on Thursday unveiled its biggest energy conservation measures since the 1970s oil crisis, part of a Europe-wide effort to save power this winter as Russia shuts off natural gas supplies to countries that support Ukraine. As Russia began turning off the gas taps to European countries in autumn, President Emmanuel Macron began urging the French to prepare for a new era of energy sobriety. Agnes Pannier-Runacher, the energy transition minister, called for a general mobilization of the whole country to achieve a 10% reduction in energy consumption in 2 years' time compared to 2019.
Efforts in energy must be accelerated. This is good sobriety plan. So along with this, it's about accelerating more investment in terms of energy efficiency, and it's to have some very simple measures to collectively succeed in reducing 10% of regular consumption.
We have never been independent when it comes to energy. Today, we are exposed to fossil fuels at nearly 66% of our energy consumption. 66%! And the challenge is to get out of these fossil fuels to really have this abundant energy at low prices that no longer hurts our planet.
After the decision of the OPEC Plus on Wednesday, which includes a major production cut of 2 million barrels per day, starting from November to bolster oil prices that have recently tumbled over recession fears, US President Joe Biden expressed disappointment on Thursday and claimed that the United States was looking at its alternatives. Meanwhile, Dmitry Peskov, a Kremlin spokesman, claimed that this decision is aimed at market stabilization and that by agreeing to reduce output, OPEC Plus has confirmed its credentials as an organization responsible for market stability. While in Africa, the Secretary General of the African Petroleum Producers Organization has come out in support of the OPEC Plus decision to cut production by around 2% on the sidelines of Africa Oil Week in Cape Town. According to Sweden's security police, suspicions of deliberate sabotage on the damaged Nord Stream 1 and 2 gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea have grown as a result of a crime scene investigation in that nation's exclusive economic zone. 4 leaks from the Russian pipes that were found last week in Swedish and Danish exclusive economic zones are being looked into by Swedish and Danish authorities. Britain's economy is expected to remain weak until 2024 to recover to pre-COVID levels amid slowdown for hiring and business investment, as households and businesses struggle with soaring costs. The prediction comes despite the British Prime Minister Liz Truss pledge to ride out the turnout unleashed by her tax-cutting agenda, saying, quote, "The disruption will pay off in a wealthier, more efficient Britain." The United States has carried out an airstrike in Syria just hours after top ISIL leaders were shot dead by special forces in a midnight raid. U.S. forces conducted an airstrike in northern Syria, killing one of the top 5 ISIS leaders and the deputy leader of ISIS in Syria and an ISIL official responsible for prisoner affairs. The announcement came just hours after special forces succeeded in killing an ISIL official known to facilitate the smuggling of weapons and fighters to support ISIL operations.
Really, ISIS is not the threat that they were back in 2014, and the point is we want to keep it that way, and so it's something that we have to just continue to work very hard on, which is, again, a large reason why you saw an operation like you did last night.
Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry on Wednesday requested the help of the international community in the midst of a deep national crisis, protests and fuel shortages. The United Nations in return called for the creation of a humanitarian corridor that would allow the distribution of fuel amid dire shortages created by a gang blockade of the country's principal fuel terminal.
I'm asking the international community and all the countries that are friends of Haiti to support us, help us fight this humanitarian crisis. I'm also asking for aid and the help I need for you to give us the support we need to stop people from dying in droves. If we can't get treated water and medication, and if we are not able to reach the people that are sick now, that cholera has started to make a return to the country.
The UN rights body on Thursday agreed to renew a resolution on Sri Lanka that mandates monitors to collect evidence and develop accountability strategies on gross human rights violations despite intense criticism from several countries, including China and Pakistan. African Union-led peace talks aimed at ending a 2-year conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region proposed for this weekend have been delayed for logistical reasons. However, the forces of Tigray have shown their readiness and acceptance of the Union-led peace talks. The country has been living a fierce situation after the violence in the country that represents an obstacle in solving the country's economic and political collapse. The U.S. President or the President of the United States, Joe Biden, announced this Thursday a pardon for people with light federal convictions for possessions of marijuana, a decision that will affect thousands of those sanctioned and takes a further step towards decriminalization. This was one of the campaign themes of Biden, who then promised to start the process to relax the federal classification of the substance.
I'm announcing a pardon for all prior federal offenses for the simple possession of marijuana. There are thousands of people who are convicted for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result of that conviction. My pardon will remove this burden on them.
And finally, in our news, DHL Global Forwarding celebrated a 1-year anniversary since opening its branch in Algeria. The ceremony was marked by the presence of the German ambassador to Algiers, DHL partners and those involved in the company's activities from 15 different nationalities, including Algeria, Egypt and Germany. Top officials of DHL Global Forwarding Algeria addressed the company's provided services and the most important achievements the DGF branch, or DHL Global Forwarding, made in Algeria through 1 year since its establishment. DHL Global Forwarding carries out a wide range of bespoke logistics of supply chain through air, land and sea with its combined divisions.
Started in Algeria in 2021 in September. It's our anniversary here for 1 year. Algeria is the biggest country in Africa, third biggest economy in Africa. So we decided to develop our branch in Algeria. We found it helpful from the new vision of the government how to invest in Algeria. We are here to develop our freight forwarding business. We exist in 220 countries and now it's 221.
Basically our focus is per sector. We are collaborating in sectors of oil and gas, life science and humanitarian, and also industrial projects, as well as engineering and manufacturing.
In the future of DHL, we have a very exciting project on the horizon in the line of digitalization. We will soon be launching our digital road freight platform called Saludo, which will allow transporters to connect with shippers in an easy way online and hopefully further simplify and improve the way road freight movements are organized in Algeria.
Still in Algeria, but to literature now. The American author Elaine Muktafi was hosted yesterday at the famous library of Tiers-Monde, or Third World, in the capital Algiers. Muktafi, who supported Algeria's independence efforts, organized a sign-in session for her book, Algiers' Third World Capital.
The Algerian War for Independence was one of the major anti-colonialist struggles of the 20th century. And not only was it a colonial struggle, anti-colonialist struggle for the Algerian people, but it represented all African people struggling for their independence from colonial rule.
And for more international news, let's follow this roundup.
Forest fires spread across Chile's eastern island, a UNESCO World Heritage Site status on Thursday, causing damage to sacred Moai status and affected an area of 60 hectares. Emergency officers and island staff took part in 8 hours of combat in an attempt to reduce the spread to the grounds, which had a breakdown of 49% grassland and 51% scrub, which presented high drought and favored the massive spread of the forest fire.
3 school students were killed during a flood in the Indonesian capital of Jakarta on Thursday, the latest in a series of floods hitting the city over the last few days. The children were crushed by a crumbling wall as floodwaters surged into the school. Indonesia frequently suffers floods and landslides, particularly during the rainy season from November to March.
At least 19 people were confirmed dead after an avalanche struck climbers in the Indian Himalayas, authorities said on Friday, with bad weather hampering the 4th day of search and rescue efforts. The group, consisting of 34 trainees preparing for high-altitude navigations who were accompanied by 7 instructors, was caught in the avalanche at 8:45 a.m. on Tuesday. Rescue operations are continuing to search for 10 other people, according to local media.
Jailed activist Alice Bialyatsky from Belarus, the Russian Organization Memorial and the Ukrainian Center for Civil Liberties group have won the 2022 Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to document rights abuses. The prize will be seen by many as a condemnation of Russian President Vladimir Putin, who's celebrating his 70th birthday on Friday, and Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko, making it one of the most politically contentious in decades.
And to a lighter note now, the celebration of Mawlid al-Nabawi Sharif, or the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, is celebrated according to the Islamic lunar calendar on the 12th day of Rabi' al-Awwal. Millions of Muslims gather today to celebrate this occasion. The event is celebrated by many Muslim countries on the 12th day of Rabi' al-Awwal, the 3rd month of the Islamic calendar, as mentioned before. All right, time for a reminder of our top stories. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is expected to meet with the United Nations Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Stefan de Mistura, on Friday. At least 37 children were reported dead in Thailand after a mass shooting in a children's daycare center. US President Joe Biden raised alarm Thursday that the world is on the brink of a nuclear catastrophe for the first time since the Cold War. And finally, 44 European leaders are meeting in Prague for a new summit named the European Political Community. And with this, the program comes to an end. Thank you for keeping it here on our channel. For more stories, don't forget to visit our social media platforms and our website. That's it. Bye for now.